thank you for joining me for this episode of Play With It with Cass Allen. For those of you who have been following me, you know that we've changed gears and we've moved from the dating pool to discussing family relationships. This week we've been talking about the top 5 types of relationships that we'll be exploring over the next few weeks, and today we're talking about aunties and uncles. As with the rest of the types that we've listed through the week, there are different types of relationships that become auntie uncle. We haven't even touched on the auntie uncles that are actually our parents sometimes due to family secrets. And we obviously have the biological aunties and uncles as defined by siblings of our parents. People have aunties and uncles just out of being raised in an environment with older people who our parents deem should have those titles out of respect and the closeness that they are. Sometimes it's our parents' best friends who are called our aunties and uncles. Sometimes it's someone who's just an older peer that seems to fit that role. It could be even a best friend of an older sibling sometimes that we begin to use that name with. Me personally, growing up, my mother had me calling everybody auntie and uncle who was an adult. So I didn't learn, like I'm sure some other people, until I got older, the true relationships that existed with that title. I called people auntie, uncle for couple of decades that I found out were actually my cousins. But because they were so much older, the next generation backward or 2 generations backward, we didn't call them second cousin, third cousin. We called them different titles. And for me personally, as I began to discover those relationships, some of my thought patterns did change. I still yielded the same respect for those people because of their elderly status. But suddenly they took a different position on a family tree, which is natural. I'm a firm believer of knowing one's relationships. I understand that people tell tales to people in the family to protect secrets, but it distorts life. It's an illusion. It's smoke and mirrors. It's not real. And we began to treat people based on relationships that don't even exist. Some of us scream blood runs deep, and then you find out that the person that you think is your blood is not. It can open doors to question principles, morals. Some of us find out later that, we weren't even born the day that we've been told, and we're now a new zodiac sign. There's so many ways that we can go down paths with family that lead to a lineage that doesn't exist in the mind of a child. So, with those aunties and uncles, which are thrown around very loosely, back to that, I offer, tell the kids the truth. People still call you auntie and uncle if they want to, but at least they know you're really a second cousin. I think it's fair. As I said, we're only touching on the cusp of 5 primary types of relationships through this week, just to get y'all acquainted with, the context of our conversation, because it's not just the ordinary biological ties that we'll be discussing over the next few weeks. So I'm going to tune y'all out right now and get back to you for our final day. This has been Play With It with Cass Allen. Have a good day and have a good night.